I've made a ton of resistance band exercise technique videos over the years. I've put the 18 most popular ones all together in this video to help you build functional strength. I go into lots of technique detail, probably too much, but there's some absolute nuggets in there that I think you'll find really helpful for your band training. And if you're too busy to watch this right now, I've created a free PDF exercise guide that you can download below, which links to all the exercise videos individually. Let's get to it. In this video, we're going to look at a band lat pull down. You might think it's not possible to do, but it is, and we're going to take a look at it. So the band lat pull down. Just get the band secure. I've just used my TRX hook here. TRX is just hanging there, but you can kind of use anything, wrap it around a tree or a lamppost. As long as it's secure, then that's absolutely fine. Now obviously the lat pull down, the key's sort of in the name, you know, we want to work the lats. But we want to work them through a full range of motion as best we can, so we're going to use the band to keep tension on them. But at the top end, we're really going to stretch them out, and at the bottom, we're going to lead by pulling with our elbows, so our hands are just the hooks. We're going to lead by pulling with our elbows down and in, and we're going to really drive down and in, and then as we come back up, we're really going to stretch them right out. So in practice, that looks like this. So I like to get my knees to do these. In fact, I'd argue you have to get your knees to do these. I like to get a good bit of tension because I really want to feel a good bit of stretch in my lats. Now, get comfortable as comfortable as you can in a kneeling position. Bend over, and you can see here my hands, they're gripping, but they're really stretched here, so the band's under tension, and because the band's under tension, I can feel both my lats on both sides are really stretched out here. So from this position, you're going to drive and pull down and in, so I'm really squeezing, and the squeeze and contraction you can get in your lats at this point is fantastic. If you're pulling too much up and back, you're going to lead with more of the upper back muscles, so the trapezius, and that's not what we're after. We want to work the lats, hence why we're going to pull down and in, and look where my hands have come to. Don't worry if your hands twist or you need to move them to make it comfortable, that's absolutely fine. The key point is that we're working our lat, so we're really stretching at the top here, and we're exploding and pulling down and in, squeeze, and we're going back up for 1, 2, 3, 4, feel a stretch at the top there, and explode and pull down and in, and squeeze, and back for 1, 2, 3, 4, and squeeze, and back for 1, 2, 3, 4, and stretch. And you'll notice as I'm coming down, I'm really working on pulling my leading with my elbows and pulling it right back and behind. The more you can do that, the more you're going to work the lat. So the more we can take it from a fully lengthened stretch position right through to a tiny shortened contracted position, the more we can work it through that full range of motion, the better development we're going to get. So really focus on that, really focus on working through that full range of motion, and you will certainly feel it, and it leads to much better development. So these are a fantastic exercise. As I say, you might need to tense your stomach a little bit to keep yourself in this position, but just really work on keeping the head alignment straight. You don't want to be looking up, twisting. Really work on just pulling down and in, and honestly, you will feel the lats work so much, and you get such a great pump from it, and a great stretch at the top too. In this video, we're going to look at the back, but we're going to look at the low row, the band low row. So opposite to the high row, we're going low. Let's get to it. This is the low row, and we're going to be leading with our elbows down and in. So we're really going to hit the lats here. You're going to feel such a great squeeze throughout the whole lats and the range of movement. We're going to focus on stretching right out on the negative phase, and we're going to focus on contracting hard and pulling the shoulder blades right back on the positive phase. So get your band nice and secure. I've just hooked it onto my end of my TRX handle here, and my TRX is just hanging there. Find a secure spot for it. Again, same with the high rows. I love to start these. You want to get quite a nice bit of tension, and I love to start these with a bit of tension, and I like to protract my shoulders forward. So I don't start like this retracted, I like to protract them forward. And the reason I like to start like that in that full position is because I'm lengthening my back muscles, I'm lengthening my lats. Even as I do this, I can feel the lats stretching out, I can feel them being pulled round. And that's great, because then as we drive and we pull down and in, we're taking them from a fully lengthened position to a shortened, contracted position. So that's taking the muscle to a full range of motion, which is perfect for, well, it's the most ideal for development, for really good technique training. That's our key, that's our focus. So get it nice and secure, get that tension. As I say, kind of allow yourself to be pulled, allow the arms to be pulled, don't fight it too much. What I want you to focus on is, it's not an overhand position, it's a hammer grip, more of a neutral position. Well, more of a hammer grip position, I'd call that a neutral position, but just more of a hammer grip position. Your hands are only hooks, don't try and pull or move with your hands. Your hands just hook on, just imagine they're static objects and they're fixed. What you pull with is your shoulders, and that should, sorry, not your shoulders, your elbows, and your elbows should lead. So my hand's hooked in and my elbow's going to lead, and it's going to drive down and in, and I really want to keep this elbow close to my body as I drive down and in, and really focus on that driving and down and in. It's a lot different to just kind of doing this. You want to really drive down and in, so the shoulder blades come retracted down, and you can really, even as I do that without the band, I can really feel my lats pulling my elbows back, pulling my arms back, and I can feel a contraction in them there. So just keep thinking that, keep thinking, right, I'm leading with my elbows, and just focus on that, focus on the pull. So in practice, get the nice stretch. Oh, that feels good, the stretch. Athletic stance, and we're going to drive down and in. And look how I've really drove my elbows really hard down, and I'm pulling down, and I'm driving in, and I've got a great contraction in my back there, and I'm going back out for 4 seconds, and I'm going to stretch right out and drive back down and in, and squeeze and back down. And as I get to the bottom, as I get to the very bottom here, I'm squeezing as hard as I can. I'm really contracting my shoulder blades back, and back out for 1, 2, 3, 4, nice stretch, and explode down, and back out for 1, 2, 3, 4, and back down for 1, 2, 3, 4. Now follow the tempo what the plan calls for. If you don't find you can feel much of a connection, a contraction, and you want to work on that, I'd always advise you just to kind of stay at the top here for a second, to really just like squeeze as hard as possible. However, if you're quite used to bands and you've been working for a while, then there's no harm in just exploding up for a second and going straight back down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and up and back down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and down and up for 1, 2, 3, 4. There's not really too much, it's obviously always really good to contract as hard as you can when you're shortening the muscle and really squeezing it. There's no harm in that. Sometimes what I tend to find though is people will often contract, and then they'll kind of let it go and rest a little bit, and then continue back down with the exercise. And that's not what we want, because we want to constantly keep tension on the back, on the lat muscles. So if you're finding that you're squeezing really hard, but you're suddenly giving yourself a break, and then you're going from it, then I would advise you maybe just keep that motion of 1 second contraction, straight back down. 1 second contraction, straight back down. Because then you're constantly keeping this constant tension on the muscle. But if you do want to practice, and you really want to practice squeezing as hard as you can, that's great, but just make sure as you contract and you squeeze at the top there, you continue that squeeze, that feeling of connection as you come back down, right into the stretch. And then you're squeezing back, and I'm still squeezing, and now the stretch is beginning to take over, the stretch, and I'm squeezing. So just always be mindful of that you're not letting go of the contraction of the squeeze. You're not allowing the back muscles to rest as we're doing these rows. And that applies to both the high row and the low row. And you will feel a difference. There's a massive difference in just simply just moving and just pumping it out, where I do always think there's a time and a place for that in a challenger set, where you've got a high rep set, like 50 reps. You just want to bash them out, you're just going for it. And it's a challenger set. But with regard to this plan, this video was designed for, it's all about really putting the muscle with fantastic technique through full range of motion and keeping it under time, under tension. So keep the muscle under tension for as long as we can. In this video, we're going to take a little look at the bent over band of row, which is super awesome exercise, because it's hard, so it feels awesome. Let's get to it. A couple of key points just before we begin to remember this. Number one is always keep the tension. So when I see a lot of people doing these bent over band rows, they put it under the feet, and as they're rowing, they'll allow it to go all the way down, and they'll lose the tension in the band, and obviously you lose the tension in your back. So throughout this entire motion, always focus on keeping that contraction, pull into the lower part of your, well, as you bent over, it's going to be the top part of your stomach. Try and pull up to, I guess, below your chest. If you aim to do that, pull up to below your chest and go down slow, and just before you fully extend out, don't, because we don't want to lose the tension. Contract up, down, contract up, down. Throughout this as well, really focus on pulling back with your elbows. So imagine your hands are just the hooks, and as you're pulling back, it's your elbows that are leading. So you want to be pulling, I guess you could sort of say, a little bit towards the outside. We're not so much doing an inner row where we'd keep our elbows in. It's to the outside, and let your elbows lead as you're driving. Yeah. So don't pull with your hands. I know that sounds strange, and it's like, don't pull with my hands. Just try and use your hands as just anchors and pull with your elbows. So in practice, it's going to look like this. So get the band underneath. You sort of want it, I guess, about the middle, towards middle front of your foot. Find a position where this is where you got to play. You got to play to find what tension works for you. Obviously, you want quite a bit of tension on it, so you can come down as far as you can go to get the full range of motion in this exercise. Now, start by grabbing it, taking the tension, slight bend in the knees, and this is the sort of position you want to kind of be in. You want to keep your head nice and straight, shoulders contracted back, and the drive is an explosion up. And you see how I'm pulling with my shoulders, pulling with my elbows back, and as I'm back here, I'm really contracting. I'm really using my lats to contract and pull back, and I'm going down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and up, and down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and up, and down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and up, 1, 2, 3, 4, and up, and down. And I'm constantly keeping attention. I'm working that negative phase as much as I can. Exploding up, slowly coming back down, exploding up, slowly coming back down. And even just after a few of them, I can already feel, I can really feel the lower end of my lats that are really pulling it back. It feels fantastic. So really focus on driving back with your lats. So it's really like a really good drive, really push up and push back. Pull back. Don't push. Now, if you want to make it a little bit easier, because perhaps having perhaps having doubles a bit too hard, that's cool. Just kind of let go of the one that's lying over your foot, and just use this one. Just use a single. And as you got it, take the strain, shoulders back, explode up and down for 1, 2, 3. Explode up and down for 1, 2, 3. Explode up. 1, 2. And you're still going to work it. You're still going to feel that tension. I'd recommend a 1 second up and a 4 second down, because as always with bands, I love to try and use the bands for what they're great for, and that's tension. So I love to use them to constantly keep a tension on the muscle and to constantly keep it tense. So yes, that is the bent over band row. Give it a whirl. In this video we're going to be looking at the back, and specifically we're going to be looking at a resistance band high row. Let's get to it. First thing you want to do is obviously set up your band, and by set up I mean you just want to find something you can hook it to. So I've just used the end of my TRX here, which I put through the door, but you can wrap this around anything. You can obviously wrap it around a lamppost, you can wrap it around some tree, or sometimes you can even put it through your feet at the bottom if you're sitting down, and do it that way. But I would recommend, if you can, just try and find a security point to attach it to. It just makes it much easier. Now, the high row, there's 2 main rows that I'd argue for a band, and even for a TRX. One is the high row, and the high row we lead with our elbows by pulling up and out. So that's really targeting the upper portion of our back. And the second one is the low row. So the low row we lead with our elbows and we pull down and in. The low row, I'll put a link to the video below. That's more targeting our lower back, and it's helped us develop that V shape. So those 2 are kind of the basic rows that you need to know. There's another row I do, which is where you put the band under your feet, and it's a real sort of it's a real hard one, and a real sort of power driver, that one. But however, this video will just focus on this high row. So once you've got it attached in, make sure it's nice and secure. Your positioning, you want to get it so there's a little bit of tension at the bottom of the band here. So I don't want to be standing here where there's not really any tension, because as we're coming back in, we're going to lose tension on the muscle and a bit of stretch. And these rows are great because you can really stretch the muscles out, especially the lats and traps, especially absolutely the lats. You can really stretch the upper portion of the lats as you come back down in the negative phase. So get it hooked in, get it nice and secure. And the idea is, you're always going to have to find and play with tension to find what works for you. But as long as you can feel some good tension there, we're really going to be focusing on the connection, the mind to muscle connection, to really work these. And we're just using a band to maintain tension. Ultimately, we're focusing on contracting super hard, yeah? So, once you've got the band in, nice athletic stance, knees bent, just get yourself solid. I like to allow myself to be stretched. So I don't want to start this with my shoulder blades retracted. I want to be slightly protracted because I really want to get that nice stretch in. And to begin this exercise, don't think about pulling with your hands. Think about the hands as just being hooks, and you pull with your elbows. I know that sounds a bit strange at first, but if you give it a go, you'll start to feel that understanding. Your hands just hook, and it's the elbows that pull and lead, so they lead the up and out. And that's what we want you to focus on, want you to think of as you do these. So, we're getting ready, and I've got a nice stretch here, I'm really stretching out, and now as I pull back, and I pull up and out with my elbows, I'm now contracting my shoulder blades back, and I'm pulling, and I squeeze, and I come right back in, and I stretch. So that's a little bit too easy for me, so I'm going to take a step out, grab a bit more tension, and now I'm going to go for it. So, stretch out, pull up, and out, and back down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and explode back up, and squeeze and back down for 1, 2, 3, 4, stretch and back up and squeeze and down for 1, 2, 3, 4. Now notice my elbows are leading up and out. I'm trying to keep my hands kind of parallel to the ground, but it's fine if they start twisting a bit. It's not too much of an explode. Everything I'm keeping in control. And the tempo that I like to use with bands most of the time is about 4 seconds on the negative phase, 1 second contraction up. There's no harm in staying there for an extra second, just to really squeeze hard, and 4 seconds back down. But you've really got to focus on feeling that contraction. You've really got to focus on contracting your back. So as I'm allowing it to stretch here, and I can even feel it, I can feel it stretching out my lats. And that's great, because we're taking the muscle through a full range of motion, a full range from a lengthened stretch position to a contracted short position. And that's how we're going to get good development. So we've got that nice stretch there. You contract, pull up and out, and squeeze and back down. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the stretch, and I'm contracting and pulling up and out, and I'm squeezing for 1, 2, 3, 4, and squeeze, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's it. The key thing is just to remember to lead with your elbows and just pull up and out. And as you get into this point, really squeeze as hard as you can your shoulder blades together, and really concentrate and contract in the upper portion of your back. Just think about that as you're doing it. Don't try and think of a specific muscle as of yet. Just really focus on thinking, right, I want to contract all the portions of my upper back there and really squeeze them. Yes, as you get more advanced, you can then start to think, right, actually, how can I really just engage just my lats, just the outer bits here, to pull and contract back. But I'd argue if you can start developing that mind to muscle of your upper back as you're pulling, and you can just feel it contracting, and you're leading, you're pulling with your elbows up and out, and you're really squeezing hard at the top there, and then you're really coming back down and you're allowing a stretch, that's going to be fantastic development. And that's exactly what we're after. Controlled and just keeping tension on the muscle. Now, if you like that row, I'd recommend checking out the low rows as well, because they're just as good. If you marry up the high row and the low row, you're going to get great back development if you use these as primary compound exercises, and then you can throw in little secondary tertiary ones to target the smaller muscle groups or to develop weaker areas. So yeah, check out the low row video. Just always remember, lead with the elbows and push up and out. Hand position, it doesn't really matter too much as long as you've got them nice and hooked in. Just keep your wrists straight and just focus on leading with the elbows up and out. In this vid, we're going to look at band press-ups. 2 different variations, a normal and a wide. let's get to it. I'm going to be totally honest. You don't really need a band if you do press-ups with the correct intention, the correct technique. I don't even use it because it's just too hard. Even with a super easy level one like this, I find it just too difficult. Now, there's no harm in just using a band. As always, if you just want to move, if you want to sweat, you want to bring out some reps, just put it over you. I always like to put it kind of like that across my palms. It's about just finding where it doesn't really hurt, where it doesn't feel awkward. And there's no harm in just getting down, getting a nice position, and just blasting them out like this, you know. And I think that's what a lot of people do. And that's fine. There's a time and a place for that. It's no problem. It can raise the heart rate. You can get a sweat. It's good to, you know, finish off with a burn. However, with intention, right, with the right intention, the right technique, you can focus putting all the load just on your chest, which is what we want. When I'm just pumping them out like that, I can feel so much engaged. I can feel my chest, my arm muscles are coming in, my back's engaged, and my core's taking a bit of load. Not that that's necessarily wrong, but if we're looking for development for the chest, which is what the press-up's for, it is, because we want to isolate the chest and just put all the load on that. So, the key point to do that, I'm going to take away the band for now, just to show you. When you're in the press-up position, you want your hands a little bit outside shoulder width, and what I want you to constantly do throughout is try and push your hands together on the floor, constantly be trying. On the way up, you're trying, on the way down. And I always like to go down for 4 seconds, no pause at the bottom, and explode up for 1 second. No pause and down. So you kind of keep this bit of a slow pump and pressing up. So let's give it a try, yeah? Just push your hands together and notice the difference, yeah? I'll show you how much I struggle just with this. So I'm going down, hands just outside, right, and now I'm pushing them together and I'm going down for 1, 2, 3, 4, nose to the ground, up and down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and up, down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and up, down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and up. And you can see I'm starting to struggle already. So what I do normally, I get to about 6 or 7 and I go on my knees and I keep the momentum going, but I'm on my knees, so it's a little bit less, and I'm still pushing my hands together, exploding up, down for 1, 2, 3, 4, explode up, down for 1, 2, and sometimes I'll get so tired that I'll just have to do little pumps like this until I'm exhausted and I'm flat out. So that is how to perform the press up with intention, and you will feel how much by doing that. And it makes sense, yeah? So when you're doing flies, for example, TRX flies, you always straighten your arm at the top, straighten your arms. Why? Because we take the load off the shoulders, and as we straighten our arms and push them together, you can see here, it contracts, it makes the pectoral muscle contract. Same principle on a press up, you're pushing your hands together, it's making the pectoral muscle constantly contract throughout the whole range of motion. So all the load is placed on your chest, and you can feel it so much more. I normally, if I do 4 sets of press ups, I can do 8 normal, 6 normal, 4 normal, 3 normal. So then I have to do my 4 sets of 8, I have to then go on my knees to finish off the rest of the sets. It's hard. I've been doing these for years and they are very, very hard, and the more you push your hands together, the harder it is. So it really exhausts you. Now, once with that in mind, that key isolation, that key principle, there's then no harm in putting a band over and doing them and seeing how many you can get. And be honest, I probably can't get more than 2 or 3 because it adds a lot of tension. Same principle with wide hands. You still want to be pushing them together. All wide does vary from narrow. It just takes a different angle, a different variation on your chest muscle. There's no harm in it, but really, it's like the different variations of a bench press, you know. Where's the best one? Well, the best one is probably where you're going to get the full range of motion, which is just outside of your shoulder width, so you can press all the way up, you can press all the way down. If you're a little bit outside, you can kind of only press like this. So you're not getting a full range of motion, a full lengthening and shortening of the pectoral. So there's no harm in the wide ones. I incorporate them into my plans because I think there's a time and a place for them. I think they're great for doing supersets with as well, normal and back to back, but that is how to do a press up. So if you're quite advanced, I'd say bring the band in and give it a try, or if you're just looking to build strength, you know. However, if you're looking to sort of go more hypertrophy ranges, which is more sort of, you know, 8 to 12 sets, I would just focus on practicing without the band for now, and then maybe incorporate it in your last set for 1 or 2, just to really exhaust and to feel what it's like. In this video, we're going to look at the band bicep curl. If you want to know where this band's from, the link to it is just below. Let's get to it. Now, the band bicep curl, it's awesome, but it's often I want to see people I wouldn't say not doing it wrong, but just not as effectively as they could be. You know, what are we doing? We're targeting the bicep. We really want to just work the bicep. We don't want to be using our hands, moving all over, bringing the front of the shoulder muscle in, using too much of the forearm. We want to be isolating our bicep. Now, there is different ways you can isolate different parts of the bicep. We're just going to focus on a standard bicep curl here, which you'll find you're strongest most in the middle range of the motion. A little bit harder in the top range, but most of all, this is really going to focus on the mid bicep here. We'll try and incorporate some little tactics you can do, such as pronating the wrist at the top to really work on the bicep peak, and also a little tactic at the bottom to really focus on what people often leave out because they keep a bend in the elbow when they initiate it. So, the bicep curl. Now, if you find this uncomfortable on your hands, just go and get some gloves and just put some gloves on, or get a tea towel and wrap a tea towel. The reason I say that is because it can dig in. It's all about just kind of playing. I'm just going to stand a little bit side on. It's all about just kind of playing with where you like to have it. I like to sort of hold it just there on the outside of my hands, and just almost turn my hands in a little bit. I just find it a lot more comfier than having it in my hands like that. That's for me is a little bit uncomfortable because it puts a bit of pressure on my wrists. So I like to kind of just, it's almost like I'm just grabbing it like that, and then I've just turned my hands a bit. So, the bicep curl. Now, you want to grab it with enough tension so that you can feel a bit of tension at least here. If you're doing it too slack and there's nothing here, there's no tension, when you're coming back down, you're going to lose all the tension. I'm going to show you a little tip to try and keep tension to lengthen the bicep, but you do want to grab it so you've got a little bit of tension at the bottom here. Now, the idea is lock the elbows in, yeah? Lock them at your side, dig them in. We don't want any movements at all. No sort of bringing the elbows up or anything. We're just specifically trying to focus just on working the bicep here. We're keeping things simple so it works. So, get the tension, find the tension, try and make sure you've got about the same amount of tension either side of the band. As I say, get comfortable, and we're going to explode up. Now, you'll notice I'm not retracting my shoulder blades back here, because for me it's just uncomfortable. That, you know, the band's a bit in front, I'm protracting a little bit and I'm locking my hands in, and as long as it's controlled and slow, it's safe. Yeah, you don't always have to retract your shoulder blades back. You know, your shoulder girdle can protract forward as long as you're holding it in a safe position. It can retract. So yes, find what's comfortable, but I would advise you just to protract a little bit, just so you can get. I'm even got a slight little bend in my abs here, just to bring me forward just a little bit. Now I'm going to explode up for 1 second. As I'm at the top here, what I'm doing is I'm slightly pulling the band apart, and what that emulates is a curl and pronating the wrist. And when we pronate the wrist at the top, we work on the bicep peak, so it just means you get more of a full range of motion. Now also, if you notice what I'm doing, look at my wrist. My wrist is slightly bent back. It's not too far bent back, because that's a bit dangerous, but it's in slightly what we call a broken wrist position. Now there's no harm in keeping a straight wrist if you want. If you break it slightly though, it's going to stop you bringing in forearm muscle, and forearm muscle will help you curl up, and that means it's taking away the load from the bicep, and that's not what we want. We want to isolate the bicep. So, slightly bent position, and I'm curling up for 1, and I'm coming back down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and as I'm getting here, I'm not going to stop, because yes, the argument is if I go any further, I lose tension on the band, and thus I lose tension on the bicep. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to contract my tricep, right? So I'm contracting my tricep at the bottom. Now what's that doing? That's fully lengthening my biceps, yeah? They're fully lengthening now. And because I'm contracting my triceps hard, there's no tension lost in the bicep, because they're being stretched, they're being lengthened. If I'm like that, they're relaxed. If I'm like this, they're stretched, they're under tension. So as I explode up and I come back down for 1, 2, 3, 4, contract triceps, explode up. So it needs to be a fluid motion. So go down for 1, 2, 3, 4, up. 1, 2, 3, 4, contract, up. 1, 2, 3, 4, contract, up. Now why do we contract at the bottom? Because if my hands just like this and I come back up, yeah, I'm missing out on that much bicep. It's a good like half an inch of bicep that's not getting brought in or used. So if we fully contract our tricep, we're fully lengthening the bicep from an active range of motion. So as soon as I begin, all the load is all on the bicep as I come up and pronate round. So the bicep muscle has the ability to take your hand right up. So that's like a full range of movement for the bicep. It's curling, and then it's also pushing over a little bit here and rotating. So we're trying to incorporate as much of the bicep as possible with this band, as much range of movement and as much isolation. So the key points: slight broken wrist, contract triceps at the bottom, explode up for 1 second, no pause at the top, straight back down for 4 seconds, control the negative, contract triceps, no pause, just back up. So again, in practice, find a comfortable position, start with the contracted triceps, explode up and down for 1, 2, 3, 4, up, 2, 3, 4, up, 2, 3, 4, up, 2, 3, 4, up. And I can already feel, just after a few, I can feel the blood rush into my biceps there, and the pump is fantastic. So just remember those little key tips: a little bit of pushing out and pronating the wrist at the top, so you pull the band apart slightly. Extend at the bottom, so you do that by contracting your triceps, and a slight broken wrist position, so we know that all the effort's coming from the biceps. You incorporate those with the 4 second negatives, so you keep in tension. I love using bands to constantly keep tension, and you will really feel massively the biceps being worked, much more so than if you just grab the band and you're just pumping out. I think there's a time and a place for that. Maybe a challenger set where you're just going for it and you're losing form of it and you're just trying to get to 50. It's fine, there's a time and a place, but I think we really want to try and isolate the bicep through a full range of movement and in control. In this video we're going to look at the bicep hammer curl, which is where we keep our hands in a neutral position. Let's get to it. The exact same principles apply to the video I did with just the normal band bicep curl. So if you're coming onto this, I'd recommend you have a look at the band bicep curl. I'll put a link to it below because I cover quite in detail about how to execute it properly. And this is exactly the same execution, just the hand change is different. So I'm just going to skip over it quite fast and just almost more of a recollection. Band under feet. Again, as I say, you want to try and get a bit of tension, so there's a little bit of tension here. You don't want too much of a slack, so on the way down we're keeping tension on the bicep. Get it, so you've got a neutral grip. I like to put my thumb under. It doesn't matter if you want to put your thumb over, whichever is more comfortable for you. Now, lock the elbows in. As we explode up, and I'm coming up, it's the same principle of trying to just slightly pull the band apart at the top, slightly pronating the wrist to hit that bicep peak at the top. Try it. Even if you just do that, you'll feel the bicep work. And now if you pronate and push out, you'll feel it contract even more at the top, that pronation, because that's the full range of movement of the bicep. From there to there, from the backhand to the front face. So, exploding up, and as we get to the top, we're trying to pull it apart a little bit, and we'll go down. And as we go down, exactly the same as the curls, we're going to contract our triceps at the bottom. Why do we contract the triceps at the bottom? Because they fully lengthen the bicep. So when we begin the curl, we're taking the bicep through as much of a full range of motion as we possibly can. Now you might argue that you lose the tension on the bicep when you do that. Well, you don't, because when you contract the tricep, what happens to the bicep? It stretches, it lengthens, so it's still under tension, and it's on an eccentric load too. So the load's still there, I contract my tricep, and now it's fully stretched. There's tension on it, it's stretched, and then I initiate again. So, same principle. Explode up for 1, and down for 1, 2, 3, 4. Contract, explode up, and down for 1, 2, 3, 4. Contract, explode up for 1, 2, 3, 4. Contract, explode up, 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice how my elbows are constantly staying down by my side. I've got them locked in, and I'm really focusing on putting all the movement through my biceps. pronating at the top, pulling it apart, contracting triceps at the bottom, and back up. Even just after a few, and I was holding it with very little tension there, I can already feel the blood and the pump rush into the biceps, which is exactly what we want. So if you want to know a little bit more detail, where I talk a little bit more about the execution, have a look at the link below for the band bicep curls, but the same principles still apply. We've just slightly changed our wrist. In this video, we're going to look at just the bicep sevens. So it's 7 reps, 3 different types. Let's get to it. In previous videos, I linked them just down below. In the bicep curl for a band and the hammer curl, I go over the technique and what you should be looking at. I'm not going to talk about the technique and how to execute it here. I'm just going to show you specifically how to do the bicep sevens. But I'd highly recommend you watch especially the bicep curl band video, which I'm linked to below, just so you can understand the technique and contracting the tricep at the bottom, the pronation of the wrist position, things like that. So for the sevens, exactly the same technique when you can do it. Now the sevens, again, always find the tension at the bottom here, find what works comfortable for you. I like to put the band here, as I say in other videos. And you're going to start sevens at the top end. So at the top end of the bicep, it's the top end of the strength curl. And we're going to go down halfway, and we're going to pump up. So it's down for 1, 2, 3, 4, pump up. Down for 1, 2, 3, 4, up. Down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and up. And we're going for 7 reps. So once you get to 7 reps, straight away you go on to you restart. So I'd go to full extension and up for 7 reps. Full extension and up. Now remember, wrist position, slightly broken wrist position, so the forearm muscles don't come in. At the bottom, we're contracting the triceps to fully lengthen the bicep. As we contract up at the top, we're always pulling it apart a little bit at the top to pronate. Remember, go back and look at the bicep curl video for all these if you need to go over it. And once you've done 7 full reps like this, then it's partials at the bottom end. So what I like to do for the last 7, get a little bit lower, pull the band a little bit more, and it's just pumps and down for 1, 2, 3, 4, down for 1, 2, 3, 4, down for 1, 2, 3, 4, down for 1, 2, 3, 4. Always keeping that 4 seconds, yeah? Always 4 seconds negative. So that's it, that's your sevens. It's top for 7, it's full ones for 7, and then it's bottom ends for 7. Altogether, that's 21 reps. These are great for finishes, great to just get extra blood rushing at the muscle once you've done some isolation work of the bicep curls or the hammers. A really good one to finish on, just to tie them out. In this video, we're going to look at the resistance band tricep exercises. Now we're going to look at 3 different types. We're going to look at a close grip, a normal, and a palms down grip. Let's get to it. Find a good place to hold the band. I'm just using my TRX hook here. Well, TRX is down there, and I've just hooked it through the door. But you can hook up your band to anything as long as it's stable. Now, the triceps, awesome. Obviously, triceps, 3 muscles. It's very hard to, in fact, I'd argue maybe you can't even do it, to individually target or just make only one tricep muscle work at a time. When you use triceps, they all engage, they all contract together. So the best way to hit them is by targeting them from different angles. So that's why I'm going to show you some different ways: a palm down, a close grip, and just a normal. So we can hit the triceps in different ways with a band. Now, the first one we'll go through is just the normal. So if you look at the range of motion that the triceps can create, it's not simply just down like that. They can actually pull down and rotate and twist your arm out, so that they play a part in not just pulling down but fully twisting out as well. So it's worth bearing that in mind, because we always want to take muscles safely with great technique through their full range of motion as best we can. So we're developing the whole muscle through a lengthened to a shortened state. So that's just one thing I'd like you to bear in mind when I'm showing you, especially these normal ones. It doesn't really apply as much when we're doing the palm down or the close grip, which are both just about up and down and locking their elbows in, keeping stability and making sure we're only moving our arms by using the triceps. This normal one, what I'm going to show you, is a little bit more, because the beauty of the bands is they're flexible, so we can pull down and then we can push out as well. So we don't just have to stop here where we're not fully engaging. You can even feel it if I stop there compared to if I really push right out. that much more of my tricep muscles then are engaged to then do that. So we can take them through a bigger range of motion. Now a key thing when you're doing these as well, for all tricep exercises, opposite to bicep, when we get to a top phase, so I'm just going to kneel down here so I can get more of their tension on the band. As I pull down, I'm coming back up. When we get to the top here, let's not just stop here, okay? What I want you to think of as you're coming back up is squeeze your biceps at the top here and squeeze them hard and then explode back down and come back up. Squeeze the biceps hard and then come back down and explode down. Come back up for 4 seconds, squeeze the biceps hard and back down. And the reason I'm telling you to do that is because when we get to the top here and we squeeze the biceps, when one muscle squeezes, the opposite muscle has to lengthen. So at the top here, if we squeeze the bicep, we're then lengthening the triceps, which is fantastic because it means we're getting a full stretch. So we're taking it from an even more lengthened state to then, when we explode down, a more contracted state. So we're taking it from a full range of motion, so it's lengthened and then contracted. And that's what we want to really focus on. So as we're coming back up, think, right, what do I need to do at the top here? I want to squeeze my muscle. So I want to squeeze my biceps, not just the muscle, biceps. I want to squeeze my biceps because that's then lengthening my triceps, and then I'm going to explode down. And then I'm coming back up, squeeze my biceps, and then I'm going to explode down. Now, that's it. People could argue, or you could say, well, you're losing tension on the tricep when you're doing that. You're not losing tension because that's exactly what the band's there for. It's still through an eccentric phase. So as we're coming back up, we're still resisting tension on the band because we're taking it slow. We're taking it with about 4 seconds back up. Now, again, we're then from that phase, we're then stretching the muscle. So as I contract the bicep, I'm then stretching the tricep. So it's not resting. It's getting lengthened. There's at no point in the muscle's fibers not in movement, not in a stretch and a contracted phase. So that's the reason why we're not losing tension by doing this. It doesn't mean that the biceps are suddenly taking over and taking all the load or the weight. That's not necessarily what we're focusing on. We're focusing on good technique and development of the muscle and full range, so lengthening that muscle. So the normal ones, quite simply, start at the top, explode down, and as you come down, push the hands out like this, and you come back up for 1, 2, 3, 4. Squeeze the biceps at the top, explode down, and push the hands out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Squeeze the biceps and down. Turn the hands out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Squeeze the biceps, explode down, turn the hands out. One more time. Up for 1, 2, 3, 4. Squeeze the biceps, explode down, and back up for 1, 2, 3, 4. Whatever tempo you want to do depends on what the plan calls for. If you really want to focus on a good squeeze at the top, that's absolutely fine, and stay there for a second just to really squeeze as hard as you can. I like to do a good 4 seconds back up. I like to go explode down, and then I just like to go straight back into 4 seconds up, so I don't pause there. But when I was first learning years and years ago how to really connect with my muscle, I used to love pausing. So I'd always pause and really contract hard to then come back. So at this point it's right at the bottom of the contraction. I'm really contracting super hard. Sometimes I used to stay there for 2 or 3 seconds just to really feel it, and then I'd come back up. But I'd go with what the program recommends for your tempo. Now if we jump straight into a different variation, those normal ones are great because you really can take it right down and turn right out, so you can get a really good full range of motion. Now if we use a palms down grip, which is like this, the focus is really locking the elbows in. A normal tricep pull down with the band, yes, we want to keep the elbows locked in, but they might move slightly at the bottom here because as I flare out, they are moving a tiny bit. We always want to try and keep them locked in. We always want to try and keep those arms static. We don't want to be coming up. We don't want to be flaring out. Keep them by your sides, and let's just keep the focus, all the tension just on the triceps. So these palms down one, same principle. Elbows locked in. No harm in leaning forward here if it gets you a better range of motion, and you can also pull back out a bit if you need to get more tension on the band. Or you might need to loop the band a bit different. So if I want to get this a bit shorter, then all I'd simply do is just tie a knot in it like that and pull it down. So I'll show you that from an example. So that you can just do something like that if you want to shorten the band because you find it's too easy. So I've now shortened that a little bit, so that's definitely quite a bit harder. What I'm going to do, I'm going to lock my elbows in, I'm going to explode down, squeeze and come back up for 1, 2, 3, 4, squeeze my biceps and explode down for 1, 2, 3, 4, squeeze my biceps and explode down for 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're going to feel these more on the top head, I'd say, the top head of the tricep, which is this little bump here. And again, we're just trying to hit it from a different angle doing these. Now the same premise can be said by slightly changing our grip up. So it's the same principle as the palm down one, but we're just going to slightly change our grip. And we're going to hold it like this and hold our hands together and hold them really close. And the same principle, keep those elbows locked in and explode down, squeeze hard, come back up for 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm contracting my biceps again, then I'm exploding down and I'm coming back up for 1, 2, 3, 4. Explode down for 1, 2, 3, 4. Squeeze the biceps, explode down for 1, 2, 3, 4. Squeeze the biceps, explode down. 1, 2, 3, 4. And even just off doing those examples, I feel a great pump in the triceps there. So yeah, those are 3 different ways to hit the triceps, hitting them from slightly different angles as we do it, which is great to work into a plan to target each little area differently, and you'll really feel how different each one is. So especially, you know, the regular one, when you do this, you can really feel it. It's like the long head of the tricep. You can really feel that one working a little bit more. As you do more of these ones, it's like the shorter head at the top here, which you can feel working more. So just be really mindful of that as you're doing them, and really focus on feeling that muscle work, and really focus on feeling that contraction throughout, especially at the bottom, throughout the full range, and squeezing it and squeezing it. Yes, hopefully that was a help. I'll also put a link down below to some bicep exercises. Tricep and bicep are obviously very similar. When we do the bicep ones and we come back down, we contract the triceps to stretch the bicep out. So it's the same principles, just obviously different muscle groups and different ways of working it. In this video, we're going to look at the band overhead extension. Fantastic exercise to target the long head of the tricep. Gives a lot of width to the arm, a lot of definition. Let's get to it. Alright guys, so the overhead extension, these seem a little funny when you start working them, but once you get the knack of them and you really practice them and you get the focus, the real focus on the stretch, they are awesome for developing the long head of the tricep. Guys, if you want arms to fill out a t-shirt, you want bigger arms, yes, focus on the bicep, but too many people put too much emphasis on bicep and tiny tricep movements, or they just do simple push down extensions. To really build the mass of your arm, which is the long head of the tricep, that actually has the most mass possible to build. You've got to get the elbow and your arm right back behind your head, and you've got to really stretch it out and then extend it, stretch it and extend it, full ranges of motion. So when you step into these overhead extensions, I want you to think my goal is to stretch the muscle, and when I mean that, I mean we want to get our arms right back behind our head, right back. So go into the mindset thinking that. Perhaps on extensions, you go into the mindset of thinking, I want to get a really strong contraction at the bottom. So as you're using the band and you're pulling down, you think, right, I want to really get strong contraction at the bottom, and then I let it go back up. And a strong contraction at the bottom. But these ones, I want you to think, I want to stretch. I really want to feel a stretch and allow my arms to come right back. Now, a key one part of this as well, obviously what we're going to do is we're going to get the band, we're going to put it over our head, and the action's going to be like this. It's going to be pumping, and it's going to be letting our arms, our elbows go right back behind the head. Another key point, what I want you to think is, at the top here, I want you to contract your biceps. So as you bring the band back up and over, I want you to really focus on contracting the bicep. Now why am I telling you to do that? The reason why I'm telling you to contract the bicep at the top, when this muscle is contracted, the tricep has to lengthen. So the bicep contracts, the tricep has to lengthen, because when one muscle contracts, the opposing opposite muscle have to lengthen. So it means we're going to take it, we're even adding more additional stretch to the tricep. So as I'm coming back and I think, right, contract bicep and then explode. Come back, 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 contract bicep and then explode. And as well as contracting the bicep, you're squeezing it, you're causing more blood to push into the arm area, which is great. It's what we want. We want loads of blood flowing in there for catabolic breakdown of the muscle fibers. So yes, always think that. Always think that. So in practice, these ones you got to work just a little bit to find the right tension. So don't pull it too hard here. First of all, just get it over your head and get in a position. And I like to just look up a bit and just try and feel and look and see where the tension is, because you obviously want to try and get equal tension on either hand. You're never going to get perfect equal tension, but just thereabouts. Now, once you've got that, step out and allow your hands to come right back behind your head, because you need to find tension here. It's no good if we're here and when we get back the band's loose. We need constant tension. So allow it to pull yourself back, get in a nice athletic stance. What you're going to do is allow your arms to be pulled right back, squeeze the bicep and explode out and come straight back down. Straight back down, squeeze the bicep, stretch and explode out. Come straight back down, squeeze the bicep and explode out. Come back down, squeeze the bicep and explode out. Come back down. You can even, on the next set, maybe swap legs or halfway through if it feels uncomfortable. Explode out and back down. Squeeze the biceps, allow the stretch. Explode out. Now I like to do a tempo of 1 second out, straight back into 4 seconds down. Squeeze the bicep, 1 second out, straight back to 4 seconds down. Allow my elbows to go right back, squeeze the bicep, straight out. And you'll notice when I'm doing these, my action, I'm not sort of trying to pull straight, I'm not necessarily trying to pull out. It doesn't really matter too much on the wrist position, because the elbow joint is still going to bend in the same way. So what I'd advise you to do is just find where I feel comfortable. If it feels comfortable for you to pull straight out, do it. For me, I have to pull in a bit, so my sort of motion is a bit more like this, and I'm pulling in as opposed to pulling out like that. I find it just hurts my shoulder a little bit, but I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way, I'm just saying find a way that's comfortable. The main priority, what we're trying to achieve, is that stretch, that real stretch. And as you're doing these, you might not feel it too much, you might be feeling like, oh, this is a bit weird, I can't really feel much, as opposed to when I'm doing extensions, I really feel that sort of contraction at the bottom. Don't worry about that. Focus on the stretch. We're not focused on that solid. Yes, of course, it's amazing to have that mind to muscle and really feel it connect and burn. But the triceps is such a hard one to connect with a lot of the time. They're really hard to constantly feel like that, the sort of connection in your mind to really feel it contract and work. You've just got to trust the full range of motion and trust the stretch. And I guarantee you, if you're doing them properly and you're exploding out and you're coming back down, you're stretching, you're contracting the bicep, you will get to maybe, I start to tie it around 8 or 9, but it's not so much that burn and pump feeling that I feel when I'm doing extensions like this. It's a different type of feeling, and that's great, because when you get in that different type of feeling, you know you work in a different area, and that's what people often neglect when they're doing the tricep training. They're so focused on doing extensions, dips, that they forget to really work the long head and really stretch and really work through a full range of motion and focus on technique mastery, not just that kind of pump. And that's where we get the really good development. So yeah, it's going to feel a little strange, and you're going to maybe be a bit like, whoa, I'm all over the place, but just stick with it, and just focus on that stretch, contract the bicep and pushing out, focus on that stretch. And as you work and you develop and you get your practice it, you will then start to feel more of a connection, and as you're exploding out, you'll start to feel that pump, that burn, and I guarantee you it will develop. So stick with it. If it feels a bit dodgy at first, don't give up with these. They're super important, and they're really good for arm development. In this video, we're going to look at the band tricep 7s. I love this one because it's an absolute burner and it really pumps a lot of blood into the tricep area. Let's get to it. The band tricep 7s. 7s just basically means that we do 7 bottom, 7 full, and 7 top. So you're mixing it between a full range of motion and partial ranges of motion. And you do 7, 7, 7 for however many sets that the plan you're following calls for. And these are super great because you're targeting the tricep across different strength curves. So you're pushing it at the bottom end, the middle and the top end. And it's very hard to isolate individual tricep heads, the 3 different heads, but you can target them from slightly different angles and slightly different ways to get fuller development. So these are really simple. I'll put a link below to some of the tricep band exercises, the coaching videos that I've been doing for my muscle builder programs, which are for resistance bands. Yeah, I'll put a link to them below, so I'll check them out, especially the tricep variations video, because that'll teach you really good form and sort of mind to muscle connection and what to look out for when you're using a band to train your triceps. So yeah, get the triceps secure on a door. I'm just using my TRX handle here. I've just looped it through. The rest of the TRX is just sitting there. What you want to do is, whenever you're sort of stepping into triceps and you're working with a band, normally you've got a kind of, I always like to go on my knees. You always want to make sure you're going to focus on keeping tension. So if I'm doing tricep pulls like this and I stop there and I go back up, there's no tension on the band here. So you always want to be wary that your starting position has tension. So if I go a bit lower, my starting position's got tension there. So as I do the full range of motion and I come back up, there's still tension on the band, so there's still tension on the tricep muscle. We never want to let it relax. We always want to keep it sort of tight. We're contracting it, lengthening it, contracting it, lengthening it, almost like a pumping mechanism to keep wearing down the muscle. So I prefer to kneel with these. And the first phase, the first part of the tricep sevens is the bottom phase. So it's where you're here and you're going to push down right to the bottom, come back up halfway, right to the bottom, come back up halfway. You're going to do 7 of them. Then it turns into 7 full ones. And then it turns into 7 top ones, so at the top here. And by the time you get to these top ones, you're going to be exhausted. Now, there's a couple of things to look out for. So let's act as if we're actually doing it. So as I begin, I'm going to do tricep sevens as a hammer grip. And as I'm coming down at the bottom here, I'm going to try and focus on pushing my arms out. The full range of motion for a tricep muscle, when it contracts, it twists your hand, your arm at the bottom here right out, and that's how we get a full range of motion. It's not just simply up and down, it actually twists like this. So we always want to try and take the muscle to the full range of motion. Now, as we're doing partials, just think, I just need to get halfway back up. So if we begin, we go down, pushing out, I'm pushing out. I know I'm not getting very far, but I'm pushing against the band here. So I go down and back up for 1, 2, 3, 4, down and back up for 1, 2, 3, 4, and down and back up for 1, 2, 3, 4, and down, back up for 1, 2, 3, 4. So that was 4 reps, but imagine I've got to 7. I'd immediately then go straight into full reps. Now, whenever we're doing a full range of motion with the triceps, we always want to contract the bicep at the top, because that lengthens the tricep. So it means we're taking the tricep muscle through a full range of motion again. And again, that little trick at the bottom, I'm trying to turn my hand out at the bottom. So contract bicep at the top, squeeze hard and twist the wrist at the bottom. So after doing the bottom ones, I'm going straight into full ones. So I'm contracting my biceps and I'm exploding down, back up for 1, 2, 3, 4, exploding down and back up for 1, 2, 3, 4, contract biceps, explode down and back up, contract biceps, explode down. Then once I've done 7 of them, what I like to do in this last bit, because I want to get extra tension, I like to just step back a little bit or shuffle back a little bit, because if I'm a bit too far forward I find the tension's too easy. So these last ones, I come back a little bit, add a bit more tension, and all I'm doing is simply contracting the bicep, halfway, back up for 1, 2, 3, 4, contract, halfway, back up for 1, 2, 3, 4, contract, back down for 1, 2, 3, 4, contract biceps, back down for 1, 2, 3, 4, contract biceps, back down. And already I start to get the point where I can't even pull it past there. So in practice, it's 7 bottom ones, which are like this. So you do your 7 reps, Then you go straight into 7 full ones. So I'm going straight into 7 full ones like this. Full range of motion. And then once you've done 7 full ones, I like to just shuffle back a little bit, and I go into 7 top ones. And these top ones, you're not focusing on twisting your wrist at the bottom because you're only going halfway. You're just really focusing on contracting the bicep and really getting that final bit of pump. And that's it. That's your tricep 7s. These are awesome. In my programs, I like to sort of tack them towards the end once I've maybe doing overhead band work or sort of just neutral hammer grip extensions. They're just great to whack on at the end because they just pump so much blood into the muscle area. So they really sort of exhaust it towards the end. In this vid, we're going to look at the band shoulder press. Great one to do, but often tricky because you kind of get caught up a bit and a bit like floppy and lost. So we're going to look at how to do it properly in this video. Let's get to it. So the band shoulder press. Now, before we even use the band, I love this one because I can really, as I get to this point, I can really focus on squeezing my shoulders. Now what I mean by squeezing my shoulders, I mean not just pushing up, I mean focusing on contracting my shoulders to then push up. So if I'm like this, I can go up, but if I push like this, so I really like focus on squeezing my shoulders, and by squeezing them I'm pushing in a little bit. Even there I can feel my front shoulder, which is what we're really wanting to target here. I can really feel it engage, you know, I can really feel it. Yes, my upper chest does as well, but as I start moving up, my upper chest might stay a bit contracted, but it's my front shoulder muscle that's starting to take the load through the range of motion. And just do it, just squeeze your arm as hard as you can and push up and down, and you can feel that working so much. We take that same thinking, that same principle into shoulder presses. It's not just moving, it's not just pushing up and down. We're really going to focus on trying just to engage. Now a little tip that helps you do that is just to bring your arms forward a little bit as you're pushing up. And what I like to do is kind of just really push back a bit, contract my shoulder blades back and push up like this. So I'm slightly, if I go side on, you can see I'm slightly leaning back just a little bit. If I stay too far this way and I push up, the band kind of gets caught and you kind of like, you get a bit stuck. So in practice, we're looking at it like this. I haven't got very strong or powerful shoulders, so I keep it quite, might keep my feet together, so there's quite a bit of loose tension there. If you're quite a strong guy, strong girl, you've got good power, put your feet more and that's going to create more tension, bringing it up. So what I like to do to get them starting position, I'm going to look at about here, and I like to then just feel, is either side quite sort of the same tension? Obviously, you know, you can't measure it exactly, but you can kind of feel if one's tight or one's not. And I like to make sure that my hands are sort of right just in front of my shoulders. And I'm leaning back a little bit, I've got a little bend in my knee. And as I'm pushing up, so right now, I'm quite relaxed, but now I'm engaging and I'm squeezing my shoulders. And then I'm going to explode up, and I'm keeping the band behind my elbows here, tucked. If you let it go in front, you're going to kind of like get it stuck and do this and flop around. So keep it behind your shoulders, yeah? And push up. Now, as I am pushing up and I'm starting here, what I'm also going to do to isolate the shoulder muscles even more, I'm going to slightly push out like this. So as I go up, I go 1, and then I come down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm constantly pushing out. As I then push up, and I'm pushing out 1, 2, 3, 4, and explode up, and I push down 2. You'll notice how I'm not pausing at the top or the bottom. I'm constantly just keeping a tension in my shoulders, and I'm exploding up, and I'm going down 2, 3, 4. And at first it's easy. 2, 3, 4, and explode up. And as you can see, I'm starting to fail quite a bit now, and I can't even get to the top, so maybe just do a few pumps. And that is so much harder. I can even just do it now instead of just doing this. Yeah, we can do these all day long because there's no intention, and I can feel my back coming in, my chest, I'm all over the place. We want to isolate and we want to focus on a muscle we're trying to work. We don't want to incorporate lots of different muscles. We want to isolate. So isolate by thinking, right, I'm just going to squeeze my shoulders, I'm going to explode up. As I'm exploding up, I'm pushing out a little bit because that's going to keep my shoulders constantly engaged. Then I'm coming back down and I'm still pushing out like this, not too hard, just keeping a little bit of tension, pushing out, and I'm exploding up. And my hands, if you see it side on, I'm trying to always keep them a bit in front of me, always just a bit in front of me, so it's not going back like this too much. And I'm squeezing it and I'm pushing up, and I'm coming down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm pushing up, and I'm down for 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, why do we not stay at the top like this? Because I can stand like this forever. Not forever, but for a long time. Why? Because all the load is now transferred through my shoulder into the joint, and joints are strong. They can handle load for ages, you know. That's why when you see Olympic athletes and they get that heavy load up and they lock it out, they're locked out. It's through the joints. Now, if I push this band slightly in front of me and I push out, look how my arms are shaking. Why are my arms shaking? Because just with that slight push out, all the load is now on my shoulder muscles, yeah? It's not on my joints, which it is here, where the energy, the load transfers directly down me. Out here, my muscles are having to work, my front shoulders. So that's why we keep trying to push out, and that's why we keep attention on the outside as we're coming down and pushing up, because it keeps it constantly on the shoulder. If you just push straight up with a band, you can even do it without a band, push straight up, and the load, you can feel it just relaxes. Push up like that, and you can feel it doesn't relax. And you can even work the shoulders just by keeping it out like that, because all the tension is kept on the front shoulder there. Same principle applies to whether we're using water bottles, yeah? If you push the water bottles up and you come together, all that load now, all that tension is lost in this front shoulder because it's gone transferred. If you push the water bottles up and you keep them slightly outwards, it's going to stay there. However, we're using a band, not water bottles. So that is how you do a shoulder press. It just takes a little bit of practice to get used to these. If you can do any more than 10 to 12 to 15, if you're doing more than that, I'd argue you're not performing it correctly and you're not isolating the shoulder press. Yes, you can press all day up and down with this for up to 40, 50 reps, but if you isolate and really focus on the muscle you want to target, the front shoulders, to wear it down, you're not going to be able to, because it really destroys you, especially that 4-second down negative to then explode up. However, of course, that's dependent on what the plan calls for. Maybe it calls for 2 seconds down, 2 seconds up. In this video, we're going to look at the band face pulls. These are awesome. I absolutely love them. So let's get to it. So the band face pulls. Obviously, get the band in a secure position. I'm just using my my TRX hook here, which I've just took off, and it's just over a door. But any secure position will be fine. Now, the band face pulls. What I like to work and to think is working here are the rear deltoid muscles. That's what I class these as. I think a lot of people, you can argue that it's possibly trapezius as well, as you squeeze, even maybe a bit of the lats as you pull back and squeeze. However, I think there's better exercises such as different types of rows that focus on those muscles. So I always like to regard the face pulls and to think about it so I can get the mind to muscle connection, that it's targeting the back of my shoulders, so my rear deltoid shoulder muscle. And that muscle's great to develop because it gives the shoulder that nice round look, and it's very good because it strengthens the shoulder girdles. Most people have overdeveloped front shoulder muscles, a little bit of development in the middle, and very, very little development of the rear shoulder muscles. And the rear ones, they really they pull your shoulders back, so pronounce your chest more, and they give you that shoulder area the beautiful 4D, like 3D roundness look. So they're really good to focus on. So when you're doing these face pulls, think, right, I'm wanting to target my rear deltoids. I really want to engage them and feel them working and pulling back. I often close my eyes when I do this, just so I can kind of get in that state and really feel my muscles working. A second little tip is, as we get to the top of these, so the face pulls, they kind of do what they say on the tin, you know, you're pulling towards your face, you're really pulling, and the difference between a high row, so a high row you lead with your elbows and you'll pull up and out. You've got to be careful not to mistake them just for doing that. So although the band's in the same position, you don't just want it to be a high row where you're pulling up and out. You really want to get it higher and get it past your face. So we are pulling up and out with our shoulders, with our elbows again. So we're pulling up and out, but we're pulling up and out past our face. And what I then like to do at the top, or towards, as I'm reaching the top, is I like to rotate my hands up a bit, because we're then strengthening the rotator muscles and the rotation, the biomechanics of the shoulder, which is rotation, outer, inner. So we're really then working the rotator muscles to strengthen the whole shoulder girdle as well. So it becomes a little bit more advanced when you do that. However, you'll also then feel that tiny little technique, you will feel it more on the back of the shoulders as you then go to rotate as well. So I know that sounds like a little bit complex, and I would advise you just focus on just pulling past your face, leading with your elbows up and out. But if you can at the top, try and then focus just on rotating and pushing with the hands back a bit. And you will notice, you'll feel a massive difference just by adding that little bit. It really puts a lot more emphasis on the rear deltoid. So, whilst I've made that sound complicated, let me show you in practice how it's not actually that complicated. So you want to get the band so you've got some nice tension. Not too much, and band work is always just playing to feel what works. Something like that. I like to get a little bit of the stretch so I can just kind of feel my rear deltoid stretching out just a little bit there. And what you're going to do, nice athletic stance, pull, explode out, and as I'm getting to this point, I'm just rotating a little bit. So my kind of finishing position is about here, and you'll notice my hands, I'm always trying to keep my hands pulling past my face, and I always just think about pulling past my face in this region, so sort of between your nose and your eyes are where you want to pull your hands past always. So it's always that, so you're not letting them go too high, you're not getting them too low, we're trying to pull past our face. So let's put that into practice just to show you. So we're going to explode and down for 1, 2, 3, 4, explode and down for 1, 2, 3, 4, explode and down for 1, 2, 3, 4. Last one, explode and rotate and down for 1, 2, 3, 4. Now just be wary at the bottom here. I'm not going right down like this because the tension's lost. If the tension's lost on the band, the tension is definitely lost on the muscles. So always try and keep a little bit of tension, even if it means you can't come right in. That's fine, just come in to where you think, right, it's still a bit of tension there. I'm not going to go further because I'm going to lose tension on the muscle if the band loses tension. So just go into where you need to and then explode back out. And look at my positioning. So I'm really pulling my hands past my face and I'm trying to rotate up and over as I do, outer rotation and back down. And pull, and you really can feel it. As I'm doing that, I can really feel it working my rear deltoid here, and especially as I'm at the top here and I'm trying to pull back, it really puts a burn on it. So that's your band Facepulls, and they're such a fantastic move. You incorporate them with the high rows, the low rows, and some band Facepulls, and you're going to get such a good back workout, back development, rear shoulder development, which is super key for a good strong shoulder girdle. Front over development, where you're a bit hunched over like this, that it can normally be solved with a good technique of Facepulls and rows. That can really change a person's posture. It can really pull your shoulders back, pronounce the chest more, and make you sort of stand and walk up more. You know, that whole chest up, chest out kind of look, as opposed to most of us were hunched over on laptops throughout most of the day. So the band Facepulls are just such a fantastic exercise to help retract and retract the whole shoulder girdle back and to strengthen it. So definitely worth taking note and doing them. And also you feel such a good burn and a pump if you keep that tension and you keep that slow eccentric and explode, slow eccentric, explode, and you keep some tension. You'll come away, and if you look in the mirror, you'll be able to see just all of a sudden this rear deltoid starts to pump out, and all of a sudden you've got this beautiful roundness shape that starts to develop of your shoulders. So yeah, fantastic exercise. Today we're going to look at the band upright row. Wicked exercise, but there's just a couple of little things that we should tweak and make sure we're doing to get the most out of it. Let's get to it. So the band upright row, it's a fantastic exercise, especially for targeting the rear delts. I love it for that. I love the band pull apart for the rear delts, and I love the upright row for it as well. Now, a key setup for this, because I often see people kind of, people grab it, they don't really know what they're doing. They kind of maybe go like this, and they really sort of pull up and drive up, and you can maybe feel that on the front of your shoulders and stuff here. I guess there's a time and a place for that. I would argue it's not necessarily correct, because whenever you're not in a set rotation position for the shoulder, you could compromise it. So in this position, when we're slightly back and pulling up, it even feels awkward to do that. It just doesn't feel natural. If we take our hands a little bit further out, where that natural rotation is, up here, and we move the positioning slightly and change our body position, so we slightly contract our abs and slightly bend over, and then as we go from the outside and pull up, it's a much more natural position. The hands are over. It's much more natural than trying to pull up and back. You can experiment yourself to feel it, to feel how it feels. But for me, if I try and sort of just do kind of this, even there I can feel some awkward, like a feeling that does not feel right. So our setup position, you want to grab it a little bit outside of shoulder width. Slightly bend forward, so by doing that you contract your abs, you slightly bend forward, head up, and the idea is as we drive up, we're pulling the band out as we're driving up, and I'm slightly bent over because I really want to focus on my upper back here, my rear deltoid. So I really want to focus on the traps and the rear deltoid to really bring the band up. So slight bend over, and I'm going to go 1 and down for 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll notice I'm not going all the way down. I'm keeping tension on the muscle. I'm keeping tension across my rear deltoid and on the traps. So I pull up 1, 2, 3, 4, and up for 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 1, 2, 3, 4, and already just after 5 or 6, my muscles, especially my rear deltoid, is already tiring, so much so that I'm actually struggling to pull at the top there. So it's fine to then just get into partials, you know, but keep the same 4 second down, 1 second up, 4 second down, 1 second up, no pausing. And you'll really notice the difference where you can feel it on your traps and across the back here. You'll really be able to start feeling it. Much more so than if you're like this and you're pulling up, which you kind of feel it in the front of your shoulders here, or various parts, I guess. But let's keep it safe. Let's keep that sort of in the rotator, the range of motion, and let's keep it in front and slightly bent over, slightly protracted. So I'm not so much retracted, but my shoulders are protracted forward. Keeping the hands just outside shoulder width, and up and down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and up and down for 1, 2, 3, 4. And this suddenly turns into a really hard exercise because we've really isolated, we've really thought about the intention of what we want to target, more so than just exploding up. So give it a go, see how you find it. It can be a winner for some people. Some people, if the shoulder or the flexibility goal just isn't there, it just doesn't work for them. But it is a fantastic exercise if you can begin to try and execute it. Obviously, if you want to make it a bit easier, just stand on the band with 1 foot. Same principle, nice and wide, slightly bent over, and up and down, and up. It's the same principle, you're just giving a bit more slack in the band. In this video, we're going to look at band pull aparts. Really good exercise, really good for strengthening the shoulder girdle, and really good to isolate the rear deltoid off of your back as well. Let's get to it. There's a few different ways you can do it. You'll see many people doing it different ways. Sometimes you see people doing it like this, taking it from a high position across your chest to a low position. Other times you'll see people just out in front, just kind of pumping it away like this. And I think both ways are great. You know, both ways have their merit, especially if you're just wanting to exhaust, or you're maybe adding a bit of a challenger set on the end where you're saying, right, let's get 70 band pull aparts, and you're just going for it. You know, you're really just kind of pumping away, going for it. Pausing every 20 or something. Great burner. However, there's a good way to be able to isolate as well with this. So what I mean by isolate is when we do this, we're using multiple muscles, especially if I turn around here, you can see my shoulder blades are contracted. As I'm pulling, I'm contracting even more, so my back muscles are coming into play, my middle and rear deltoid is coming into play, so there's a lot of different muscles used there. There's nothing wrong with that, that's fine. However, if we're looking to specifically isolate a muscle, which I love to do in my programs, I love to isolate certain areas and exhaust certain areas. What I'd like you to do is hold it out in front with an overhand grip, and rather than retract your shoulders, so if I retract, I do that, I want you to protract, and I want you to stay in a protracted position as you're doing these, and give a slight bend in the elbow, so slight bend. Now I'm protracted here, and what the idea is, it's explode out, not too far, because if I go too far, I bring my back into play, and the tension is lost on my rear deltoid, and we want to target the rear deltoid here, yeah? Because that's what creates, it's a very underused, underworked shoulder. A lot of people have very well developed front shoulders from lots of press-ups and pushing, but barely anyone has good rear deltoids, and that's what gives the shoulder a nice round look, you know, gives you that nice shoe head that you see on a lot of stage athletes. So, protract the shoulders forward, band out in front, explode to about there, and go down for 1, 2, 3, 4, explode, 1, 2, 3, 4, explode. Look how I'm keeping a bend in my arms, I'm not going too far, I'm slightly contracting my stomach to lean forward a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. And notice how I'm not letting the band come all the way in, because it loses tension, and we lose tension on the muscles then. That's not what we want. I'm letting it go to about there, and there's still tension, so there's still tension on my muscles, and then I'm exploding out, and I'm coming back in. I'm constantly keeping tension on my rear deltoid. If you want to increase more tension, make it harder, just grip it shorter. So I can barely even pull it apart there. So if I let it go a bit more, about there, explode out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at my positioning. Explode out. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, I've got my shoulders pulled forward. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is a great way that I like to do band pull aparts. As I say, there's no right or wrong, there's loads of different variations, but I really love them to target the rear deltoid. Again, I don't have a problem, especially with doing these ones like this, where you're doing high reps and you're just kind of really pulling it apart and you're going for it. And I'm using my back muscles here, it's engaging my shoulder muscles, a lot of my girdle, so it's great for strengthening. There's no harm in that. Just as the same, there's no harm in doing it this way either. You're going to feel a burn. Probably more so in the front and middle as well when you do it that way. But when we're really targeting and we're bending the elbows a little bit, we're protracting forward, we're really isolating this rear deltoid muscle, this third one at the back here. So it's a fantastic way to focus on that. In this video, we're going to look at some variations of squats with the band. Variations you can do with the band. The most one which I see people doing is quite simply putting it over themselves, putting it around and just going for it, you know, really gunning for squats. And that's absolutely fine. I think there's a time and a place for that. If you're going for high rep ranges, you're wanting to get a bit of a cardiovascular sort of work in, you want to sweat a bit, perhaps towards the end of a workout or something like that. But what we're going to go through today is some real intention and isolation, and we're going to look at lower end of the squats, reps, between 8 and maybe 12 reps. We're going to look at really how to isolate and really look at how to work specific areas of the leg. So depending on what the plan calls for, this is how you would incorporate that specific type of squat. So the first one is just a general squat. So, as with all squats, get the band under your feet and over your shoulders. I always like to kind of put it not too far under my heels, but just enough further back so it's not going to slip out either way. Sometimes if you put it too much in the middle, it kind of feels uncomfortable. Even though you're wearing trainers, it kind of puts you off a little bit. So, get the band over. You want, for these ones, this is just a normal standard squat, how to make the most out of a band with a standard squat. So you just want your feet slightly pointing out, shoulder width slightly pointing out. Get the band stuck down, put it over your head, get it comfortable behind your neck, and that's all we're after to start with. Now, what I want you to focus on, too many people when they squat, they just drop with gravity. So that's just me going like this. That's not what we want. We want control, technique, and most of all want safety. So what I want you to always think about is whenever I'm going up or down, a muscle should be contracting. When I'm going down, my hamstrings and glutes should be contracting and they should be pulling me down. So if I go down now, what I'm doing is I'm imagining there's a big ball behind my hamstrings and my glutes. I'll turn a bit side on so this is a bit better to see. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine I'm trying to grip the big ball, the big stability ball, and I'm pulling myself down. So right now, I'm tensing my hamstrings and I'm pulling myself right down. And then as I come up, I'm going to contract my quads. So right now, I'm tensing my hamstrings and I'm contracting my quads now, and I'm exploding up. And at the top here, when I come up, I'm squeezing my quads as hard as I can. So right up to the top here, squeeze, and I'm going back down. Now the tempo we're going to go for is 4 seconds down, no pause, 1 second up, no pause, 4 seconds down. So it's essentially 4 down, 1 up. And we're not going to rest too much either end because we don't want to give the muscle a chance to relax. We want to keep a constant tension on it because that's what isolates it, and that's intention. So in practice, if I turn this side this way, okay, feet shoulder width apart, and I'm contracting my glutes, I'm contracting my hamstrings, it's pulling me down, explode up and down for 1, 2, 3, 4, explode up and down for 1, 2, 3, 4, explode up. And when I mean explode, I am squeezing as hard as I can my quadriceps here, as hard as I can. And when I'm at the bottom, as I'm going down, I'm squeezing my hamstrings and glutes as hard as I can to pull me down. So no muscle is resting. We're not just using gravity to bounce here. Now, you might think, well, aren't we losing tension as we're going down on the quads, especially at the bottom if we sit there? No, because as we're going down, even though you're contracting, there's still an eccentric load on the quads as you're going down. When you get to the bottom and you're contracting, and your hamstring is contracting as hard as it can, it's lengthening the quad. So this is an even better benefit because we're taking the quadriceps through a full range of motion from stretch position at the bottom because we're contracting the hamstrings and the glutes, which pull the quadricep muscle, to then contract it as we explode up to a contracted state. So that's a full active range of motion you're taking it through. Not just a passive range, a full active range of motion. And it's technique, it's good technique. And we're trying to go all the way to the bottom, and we're really activating the hamstrings and squeezing them and the glutes at the bottom, so we know they're contracting. And when one muscle contracts, just like when the tricep contracts, bicep lengthens. Bicep contracts, tricep lengthens. That's how we can take the quadriceps through a full range of motion. So for a standard squat, that's all it is. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, down, squeeze, and explode up, and squeeze, and 1, 2, 3, 4, down, explode up and squeeze. Now the planner in some cases might tell you to stay at the top for a second and just get that extra squeeze, which is really good practice for mind to muscle. You know, really squeezing as hard as you can before you go back down. But most of the time a tempo of 4 seconds down, 1 second up is great, but of course this all depends on the plan. A plan might say you need 2 seconds down, 2 seconds up. It's all about the periodization of the plan and how it progresses. So that's your first standard squat. Now another one which I absolutely love is really targeting the outer quadriceps here. And again, this is intention. This is mind to muscle intention. And to target the outer quads, it's the same principle, except this is a little bit more advanced. You're going to constantly push your feet outwards, constantly. So as you go down, you're pushing your feet outwards. As you come up, you're pushing your feet outwards. You never stop trying to push your feet outwards against the floor. And what that does is it applies all of the tension, not all the tension, but most of the load, most of the tension on the outer quads, and it exhausts them. 6 or 7 of these and I'm knackered. So as you're going down, I'm pushing my feet out. I'm still thinking about engaging my hamstrings and still thinking about that, but depending on your level, if you're quite new to bands, I would advise you just to purely focus on pushing your legs out if the plan calls for you to specifically target your outer quads. So as you go down, push out, push out, push out, push out, explode up, push out, go down, 1, 2, 3, 4, explode up, keep pushing out. If you want to take it a little bit more advanced, try pushing out and on the way down, thinking about contracting these as well, your hamstrings and your glutes. That's quite a lot to think about if this is a new technique for you, so if it is, don't worry about that, just focus on pushing your feet outwards constantly to constantly target the outer quads, yeah? So that's the second way we can isolate. Now, I'm sweating already. Now, a third way we can change up the squat is by taking a bit of a wider stance. So I'm going to have to reposition this. If we take a wider stance, we can incorporate more of the hamstrings and the glutes as we come up, and less emphasis on the quads. So what I then suggest for a wide one, and again, same principle, as we're going down, we're thinking about contracting and pulling myself down, pulling my hamstrings down, nice wide legs, always driving the knees outwards. Now instead of contracting my quads to come up this time, I'm thinking about, again, contracting my glutes and my hamstrings. So as I come up, I'm squeezing them and I'm pushing up. And it kind of makes you automatically generate a little thrust forward at the top, which is great. So here, the intention is to really work the hamstrings and glutes more. So I'm contracting down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm exploding up. And as I'm exploding up, I'm squeezing my glutes as hard as I can. Really good booty builder, this, really good. So down for 1, 2, 3, 4, squeeze up. And down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and squeeze up. So just power all in the glutes. As you're going down, hamstrings and glutes contracting down. Same principle. Now there's no harm if you then want to target the quads in a slightly different angle. You could always go down contracting the glutes and hamstrings, and you could think, right, I want to focus on targeting my quads, so I'm engaging my quads and I'm contracting my quads up. And you'll probably feel it a lot more in the teardrop muscle right here. So again, rather than targeting the outer quad, because it's a bit difficult right now to push our feet out, just by focusing on contracting the quads to come up, we can then target the front. So different variations and different ways with a squat, just a few different ones to target different aspects. As you can see, I'm shattered, I'm sweating, I'm knackered, just off doing them simple ones. So it's because we're really focusing on engaging the muscles. We're not just doing this. You know, lots of people can do this, but where's the control? Where's the intention? Where's the thought of the muscle you want to isolate? So whatever your plan calls for, whatever program you're following, have a look at and see what it specifies. If it specifies just for normal squats, you know you've got just your shoulder width, you know you're focusing on contracting your hamstrings and pulling yourself down to then explode up. If it calls for outer quad focus, you know you're pushing your feet outwards constantly as you're going down and up. And if it calls for wide squat with glute focus, you know you're then going wide and you're exploding up and squeezing your glutes and your hams. Okay. So that's it. That's some variations of a squat and how to do them with a band. In this video we're going to look at the straight leg band extension, or the straight leg extension with a resistance band. Let's get to it. I absolutely love this exercise because you can get such a good stretch and you can keep a constant tension on the hamstring muscles. You may need to wear gloves or wrap a tea towel around this because it can get uncomfortable on your hands. We're targeting the hamstrings here. Now, as we target them, the simplest way to target the hamstrings is to keep everything in alignment. I always talk about just keep things in alignment, keep things straight when you're exercising. If you want to advance it a little bit, you can change your feet position a little bit. So a lot of people, especially guys or athletes on stage, like to have like quite a big look to the hamstrings, and they like to target the top of the biceps femoris, because when they push the legs together, that kind of creates that big width, and you see people with huge hanging sort of hamstrings who've got really big legs. That's often because the target in the top end of the bicep femoris by just slightly turning the feet out. So that's a little bit more of an advanced thing if you want to target that top end and sort of develop a look, a visual look of more width to your leg. However, I would argue that we're just trying to target the hamstrings as best we can through full range of motion, as safely as we can, as effectively. So I'd argue that you just kind of want to keep your feet straight, maybe slightly turned out if that's a bit more comfortable for you. Absolutely fine. So straight leg extension. So let's get the band under. You can see I've wrapped it under both my feet there, so it's kind of just you don't put it too much under the middle. I'd say get it under the ball of your foot. And what we're going to do here, you need to grab it, and this is where it kind of can hurt your hands. You need to grab it so you've got quite a lot of tension. So I'm grabbing it, you can see there's a lot of tension there, and the reason is because we're going to be going down slow and stretching the hamstrings out to then explode and drive our hips forward, squeezing the glutes and hamstrings as hard as possible at the top here. So I'll turn a bit side on for you so you can see that a bit better. As we're going down, feet shoulder width, feet straight in front. As I'm going down, I'm really stretching my hamstrings out. Now, because the reason I'm being able to stretch is because I'm slightly tilting my hip, going against the stretch. So what that means is I'm not allowing my hip to kind of bend forward, because it means I'm going to be able to bend forward more. I'm sort of like arching my back a little bit and pushing my hip up so I can get more of a stretch on my hamstring, because the hamstrings connect to the hips. So that's what you want to kind of work on. Don't sort of hunch forward and bend your knees, and you'll be able to go right down. If you kind of contract your shoulders back, keep a solid position, keep a slight arch in the back. I don't want to sort of say arch your back, because that's bad, and we want to do everything safely. But to kind of put your hip position in the right position that we want, you've got to slightly arch it a little bit and slightly push your bum out as well. So in practice, what I mean is, if I get the band, and like I say, you're going to have to grab it quite low, because we need to keep tension. We need to keep tension on that band. If I'm coming down and there's no tension at the bottom here, then the tension's going to be lost, or it's not going to be any resistance as I then explode up. We want to keep a constant resistance and tension for this bit where we're exploding up. So although it might feel minor, it actually, you will feel these the next day so much, because you're getting a really good stretch. And as I bring myself up, I'm squeezing as hard as I can. And look, if holding the 2 bands is too much for you, that's no problem at all. You can see here I've just got 1 band, and I can just hold it with 1 band. Good tension there. Get yourself nice and straight, lock the shoulder blades back, really good stance, solid stance, and lean forward, and I can feel it stretching, so that's 4 seconds down. I'm stopping because I can feel a really good stretch in my hamstrings. And then to come up, I squeeze my glutes and my hamstrings together, and I drive forward, and I'm going down for 1, 2, 3, 4, drive forward. This is a really good booty builder, really good to build the bum up, build some strength, build some shape to it. Drive forward, and down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and drive forward. Now holding it just with 1 is a little bit too easy for me. I need to hold it with 2, because I like to get a bit more resistance. So if I'm doing them properly, I'll hold it here. Like I say, you might need to wear gloves for this, but come down, stretch the hamstrings, and drive forward. So you really, without getting too silly, you're really thrusting forward as hard as you can. So you've got to really thrust and drive. And at the top here, I'm squeezing my glutes, my bum together as hard as possible. I'm squeezing my hamstrings. So down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and drive. And down for 1, 2, 3, 4, and drive. And back down for 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you might look at these and think, well, that looks like nothing, because obviously when you see people do it in the gym, they do it with the weights quite heavy. Trust me, if you can use the hamstrings and you can stretch them right out from a really lengthened position to then mind to muscle contract them powerfully, they will develop, they will grow, you will get stronger. You'll also maybe find that if you have knee problems, because sometimes you have imbalances or some muscles are pulling the knee, so sometimes the hamstrings can be pulling the leg in the wrong position. It can all affect the knee area, which is a very complex area, and I struggle to understand it myself. But one thing you will notice by doing these, by really stretching the hamstrings out to then contract to build power in them, you tend to find it can solve a lot of knee problems, because it fixes imbalances, and often people have weaker hamstrings, or too tight ones, because they're not stretched and flexible. So that's a fantastic exercise to really focus on even if you're talking about, or you're looking at a aesthetic point of view, it's a really good one to build the booty. Lots of girls like to have that nice shape to the glutes, nice round shape, and this is a fantastic one because it really gets you focusing. You've really got to make that mind to muscle connection and focus. So it's a fantastic one. Don't look at it and think that looks super easy, or even just with 1 band. We're not looking to, we're looking to work smarter, not harder, and we're looking to connect with our muscle and cause tension. So it's all about working smarter, and you will get development from them. I've been doing these for years, mixing it in with TRX ones, and even now I still get DOMs from them, and it's not that my recovery's good, but it's just because they're just so good. Because it's very rare you can find exercises that you can stretch the muscle that well to then contract it hard, and that just leads to development and breakdown and blood rushing there and telling your body to make it grow. So yeah, I'll stop rabbiting on now, but hopefully that was a help. These are a great exercise, and really focus on that stretch, really focus on contracting your glutes and your hamstrings, it's much easier to contract your glutes than it is your hamstrings. They take a while to kind of develop that feeling, so you know what it feels like. But really contract them as you drive back up and thrust forward, and to develop that power. And just be mindful of your hip position as well, as I was saying, to achieve that stretch. Today we're going to look at standing abduction with a band and without a band. Quick little vid here, the standing abduction. Very simple, but man, it's one hell of a burn. All you got to do is, without a band, place foot directly under you, keep a straight line, and you're going to raise your leg out. And as you raise your leg out, push it back a little bit. So you're pushing out and back. And as I'm doing that, I'm focused on squeezing the squeezing my glute as hard as I possibly can to push out. So I'm pushing out, and I'm pushing out, and I'm pushing out. Notice how I'm a little bit. I try to slow the negative part coming in down just a little bit. So I explode out, and I'll try and slow it down a bit. Explode out, try and slow it down a bit. Explode out, try and slow it down a bit. And that's it. Now if you go for high reps of them, pausing at failure, they are absolute burners, and they're really good for the glute, really good for the outer quad as well. Now if you want to incorporate a band into the standing abduction, this is always too hard for me. I'd recommend, this is definitely going to be a bit too hard, so I'd maybe go for one of the more thinner easy bands if you've got them. In my opinion, you don't actually need them, because this is enough for me, but a lot of people have much powerful hips than me, so if you do want to add a band, it's really simple. Just hook it over your foot like that. So it's just like that. Put this foot through, and again, think about your focus, think about your intention. You want to engage the glutes here. The outer quad will naturally engage, so really think about squeezing the glutes and kicking slightly back as you come out. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and look how I'm really trying to slow it down here, because if I just let it go, it'll just pull me back in. We want to resist, because we want to try and gain that negative tension. So push out and down, push out and down, push out and down. Just a few of them, and I'm already shattered. So like I say, try and get an easy one if you can. I don't normally tend to use them. I tend to just really focus on just getting that full range of motion as much as I can out with just one leg, and I find once I'm going up to high rep ranges, they really burn. They're a great leg finisher and a great isolation.